When my son texted me that I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving dinner in the house I bought for him with my life savings, I typed 2 letters. Okay. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just made a phone call. By the time they were carving the turkey, I had carved them out of my life. They thought the old carpenter was weak. They forgot I don't just build foundations. I demolish them too. If this story finds you, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this world. My name is Thomas, and I need to tell you how my dream for my family became a nightmare. I've always believed a man is measured by what he builds. For 40 years, I built houses. I hammered nails in the freezing rain. I sweated through brutal summers. Every splinter, every sore muscle, it was all for my family. It was to build something solid, something they could rely on. That's what a man does. He provides. My wife, Martha, understood that. She was the heart of the home I built. She dreamed of big holidays. Laughter, the smell of baking bread, a crowded table. Martha was my world. But 5 years ago, she passed away. The house we shared suddenly felt too big. The silence was too loud. I'd sit in my armchair and listen to the refrigerator hum. The foundation I built felt cracked. I was alone, and I hated it. My son, David, was all I had left. He married Jessica, and they had 2 beautiful children, Ethan and Emma. My grandchildren were the light of my life, but they lived across town in a cramped, noisy apartment. It was no place to raise kids. David worked in marketing. It sounded important, but he never seemed to have enough money. Jessica stayed home. Her focus was always on what they didn't have, never on what they did. It's impossible, Dad. David complained one afternoon. He was sitting on my porch, twisting his wedding ring. He always did that when he was stressed. Rent keeps going up. We can't save anything. What about the kids? I asked. Ethan needs a yard, David sighed. He can't even ride his bike. We're drowning, Dad. I looked at my son. He looked defeated. I wanted better for him. And deep down, I didn't want to be alone anymore. I wanted my family back. That's when I made the decision. A massive, life-changing decision. One that would cost me everything. I was 65. My retirement savings were decent. Decades of sacrifice. But they were just numbers on a statement. I wanted those numbers to mean something real. So, I sold my house. The house Martha and I paid off over 30 years. The house where David took his first steps. Packing up the memories hurt. The photos of Martha. The furniture we bought together. It felt like losing her all over again. The closing day was quiet. The realtor handed me the check. It felt heavy. It was my life, reduced to a piece of paper. But I told myself it was worth it. I was securing their future. Or so I thought. I took that money. I combined it with my entire retirement savings. Nearly $500,000, and I bought a house for them. It was a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial, painted cheerful yellow, huge backyard, modern kitchen, granite countertops. Enough space for everyone, including me. That was the deal. We shook hands on it. I would pay for the house. Outright. No mortgage. In return, I would live with them. There was a small in-law suite above the garage. Own entrance. Small kitchenette, bathroom. I wouldn't be a burden. I just wanted to be near my grandchildren. And I wanted those big family dinners Martha always dreamed of. I thought I was buying a family. I was wrong. The day they moved in, I felt a swell of pride. I watched Ethan and Emma running the backyard. Their laughter echoed in the spring air. I looked up at the sky and thought, Martha, we did it. I thought the hard part was over. I was wrong. The cracks started to show almost immediately. I was unpacking my boxes in the suite, trying to figure out where to put my tools. That's when Jessica came upstairs. She didn't knock. She just walked in. She looked around the small space. Her nose wrinkled slightly, like she smelled something bad. It's a lovely house, Thomas, she said. Her voice was tight. It didn't reach her eyes. But this suite, it's smaller than I pictured. It's perfect. Jessica, I assured her, forcing a smile. Just enough space for an old man. Are you sure you'll be comfortable? She pressed. It feels a bit cramped. She wasn't concerned about my comfort. She was staking her territory, and my territory was small. Then Jessica's mother arrived. Linda. Linda was a woman who wore expensive clothes and carried an air of superiority. She never liked me. She thought I was too blue-collar, too rough the edges for her sophisticated daughter. She always hinted Jessica had married beneath her. She arrived with expensive champagne and an attitude. She walked into the main living room, ignoring the boxes. She didn't offer to help. She just judged. Well, Linda sniffed, looking around. The neighborhood is certainly improving. She glanced towards the door leading to my suite. And that's where you're staying, Thomas? Above the garage? I nodded. How very practical, she said. The word hung in the air, dripping with disdain. Keeps you out of the way, I suppose. You won't disturb the children's routine. Out of the way. I had just spent my life savings to bring us together. And she saw me as an obstacle, a piece of unwanted furniture to be stored in the garage. David laughed nervously. He wouldn't look at me. It's a great setup, Mom, he said quickly. Dad has his privacy, and we have ours. Privacy. It sounded like a good thing, but over the next few months I realized privacy was just another word for isolation. I wasn't living with them. I was living adjacent to them. My days developed a lonely routine. Wake up early, coffee alone, then I'd check on the main house. There was always something that needed fixing. I became the built-in, unpaid handyman, and they weren't shy about using me. I fixed the leaky faucet. Jessica stood over me, tapping her foot impatiently. Can you hurry, Thomas? I need to start dinner. No thank you, just expectation. I assembled endless IKEA furniture. Shelves, dressers, desks. My back ached. I mowed the huge lawn, tended the garden beds, repaired the back gate. I was working harder in retirement than I had in years. I was useful, but I wasn't family. I often babysat Ethan and Emma. That was the only real joy I found in that house. We built birdhouses in the garage. I taught Ethan how to use the screwdriver. Emma loved to help me water the flowers. In those moments I felt like a grandfather. I felt like I belonged, but those moments always ended too soon. When David and Jessica came home, the atmosphere shifted. The children were swept away. The door connecting my suite to the main house remained closed. It felt locked even when it wasn't. I ate most of my meals alone, staring at the wall, the sounds of their life muffled through the drywall. One evening, I decided to try. I went downstairs around dinner time. Should I join you tonight? I asked David. He hesitated. Dad, our schedules are just so busy, he explained, avoiding my eyes. It's easier if we eat quickly and then get the kids down. You know how it is. I didn't know how it is. Martha and I always ate together. Dinner was sacred, but here I was an interruption. I nodded slowly. Sure, David. I understand. I didn't understand. I just didn't want to fight. I thought if I was patient, they would eventually let me in. I was wrong. When I was in the main house, the conversation revolved around their needs, their stresses, their wants. I was there to serve and to pay. Dad, the car is making a funny noise, David said one morning, handing me the keys. Can you take a look? Then came the money requests. They started small. Thomas, we need some groceries, Jessica said, holding out her hand. David's card is maxed out. Could you help us out? Just a couple $100. A couple $100 turned into a few hundred every week. Then the bigger asks started. Jessica saw a new dining room set she loves. David mentioned casually. It's expensive, but this old stuff looks terrible in the new house. We need to upgrade. The old stuff was the solid oak table Martha and I had saved for years to buy. I helped. I always helped. I dipped into the small reserve fund I had left. The emergency money. I was their safety net, their handyman, their ATM, but I was rarely their father. I was the hired help who lived upstairs, and they were bleeding me dry. But that wasn't the worst part. I started noticing things. David looked more stressed than usual. He was always on his phone, whispering urgently. One evening, I was taking out the trash. I saw him in the driveway, arguing with a man I didn't recognize. The man wore an expensive suit and looked furious. The man jabbed a finger at David's chest. I don't care about your excuses, Anderson. You missed the deadline. The partners are furious. David was pale. Mark, please. I just need a little more time. Time is up, David, Mark snarled. Fix this mess or you're out. And trust me, you won't work in this town again. Mark sped away. David stood there, trembling. I stepped out of the shadows. David, what's going on? He jumped, startled. Dad, it's nothing, he lied, avoiding my eyes. Just work stress. A difficult client. But I knew it was more than that. He wasn't just stressed, he was scared, and his fear was making him desperate. Linda's visits became more frequent. Weekends turned into weeks. When she was there, the isolation became exclusion. They started hosting dinner parties. Sophisticated people, friends of Linda. I wouldn't be invited. I would sit in my suite, hearing the laughter and music coming from the house I bought. One night they were playing jazz music, the kind Martha loved. I sat there in the dark. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I felt a ghost haunting my own life. I had sacrificed everything for this, and this was what I got. Loneliness, wrapped in a pretty yellow house. I noticed something else during Linda's visits. She wasn't just visiting, she seemed to be living there. Her clothes filled the guest room closet. Her luxury car was always in the driveway. I overheard a conversation between Linda and Jessica in the kitchen. I was fixing a cabinet door. They thought I wasn't listening. I don't know how much longer I can keep the condo, sweetie, Linda whispered, her voice tight with anxiety. The fees are astronomical, and my investments.
They haven't been performing well.
Don't worry, Mom, Jessica soothed. You can stay here as long as you want. This is your home, too. But what about Thomas? Linda hissed. He's always lurking around. It makes me uncomfortable, and we need the space. Thomas won't be a problem for much longer, Jessica said, her voice cold and calculating. David is working on it. My blood ran cold. Working on what? Were they planning to kick me out? After everything I had done, the betrayal cut deep. But it explained everything. Linda wasn't just visiting. She was moving in, and I was in her way. They were erasing me. As November approached, I started to get excited. Thanksgiving. This was it. The first big holiday in the new house. This was exactly what I had envisioned. A huge turkey. My grandchildren running around. A table full of family. This was the reason I sacrificed everything. This was the payoff, or so I thought. I mentioned it to David one afternoon. I was fixing a broken fence post in the backyard. I was thinking of doing the turkey the way Mom used to. I said, with the chestnut stuffing. Remember how much you loved that? David shifted uncomfortably. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the broken fence posts. About that, Dad, he started, his voice hesitant. My stomach tightened. Jessica and her mom are kind of handling the planning this year, he continued quickly.
Linda is taking charge. Taking charge? I asked, confused. I thought we were hosting. We are, David said, but it sounded weak. But they have a whole theme going on. It's complicated. A theme? I laughed, but it sounded hollow. It's Thanksgiving, David. The theme is gratitude.
He flinched. I know, Dad, but Linda has specific ideas. She's flying in her sister and cousins. He sighed. It's better if we just let them handle it. We don't want to step on our toes. Step on our toes. I felt a chill. They were pushing me out. Again. I let it go. As long as we were together, that's what mattered. I could swallow my pride. I had done it for months. I was still trying to make it work. Until the message arrived. It was a Tuesday evening, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was in my suite. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from David. I opened it. The words on the screen hit me like a punch to the gut. Stealing the air from my lungs, I had to sit down. I read the text. Dad, I know you bought us a house, and we appreciate everything, but my mother-in-law doesn't want you to come to Thanksgiving dinner. I stopped reading. I couldn't breathe. I read it again. She says it's her turn to host in our new home, and she wants it to be just her side of the family this time. It's too crowded otherwise. Jessica agrees it would be less stressful. And then, the final insult. We'll send you a plate. Sorry. I stared at the phone. My hands, usually so steady, began to shake. Uncontrollably. Doesn't want you to come. In the house I bought, they were banishing me to the garage, while Linda took my place at the head of the table. They would send me a plate, like a servant eating scraps in the kitchen. The audacity, the sheer, breathtaking ungratefulness, the cowardice of my son, hiding behind a text message, letting his mother-in-law dictate terms in a house he didn't even own. Or did he? A profound sadness washed over me, but it was quickly followed by a burning anger. A cold, hard realization settled in my chest. They saw me not as a father, but as an inconvenience, a blue-collar embarrassment. I typed 2 letters. Okay, I hit send. I sat in the quiet of my small suite. The sweet Linda had called practical. I looked at the pictures of Martha, her smiling face, her kind eyes. What would she say? She would be heartbroken by David's betrayal. But Martha was strong. She never let anyone walk over her. She always told me, Tommy, kindness is not the same as weakness. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the house, the hum of the refrigerator I paid for, the whoosh of the furnace I maintained, and I realized something fundamental. I had mistaken financial support for love, sacrifice for respect. No more. That night, the generous father died. The patient handyman retired. They thought they had a solid foundation. They were about to find out it was built on sand, and I held the tide in my hand. The next morning, Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, I woke up with a cold clarity. The pain was still there, but the anger had refined into resolve. I made coffee, looked out the window. The house was already buzzing. A white van pulled up. Gourmet gatherings, catering. Florists delivering elaborate arrangements. A party I was banned from. I picked up my phone, dialed a number I hadn't used in a while. Michael Roberts, an old friend, a sharp real estate lawyer. Thomas, long time no hear. Michael's cheerful voice boomed. How's retirement treating you? Living the dream? It's complicated, Michael, I said. The word tasted bitter. I need your professional advice, and possibly your help. Urgent. I'm listening, Michael said, his tone shifting instantly. We met at his office downtown. Sleek, modern. I laid everything out for him. The purchase of the house, the months of exclusion, the money, David's job troubles, Linda moving in, and finally, the Thanksgiving text. I showed it to him. Michael listened quietly. His face grew sterner as I spoke. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, shook his head in disbelief. That's cold, Thomas, said, his voice low. That's ice cold. They are actively trying to push you out. After everything you sacrificed. It's unbelievable. I know, I admitted, the shame washing over me. I was a fool. You were a generous father, Michael corrected. They were the fools. He paused, tapping his pen on the desk. Tell me about the purchase. The closing. This was the crux of it. The secret weapon I didn't even realize I had. When I bought the house, I handled all the paperwork. David and Jessica were too busy, picking out paint colors, arguing about furniture. They assumed I had put the house in their names. But I hadn't. Maybe it was intuition, a nagging doubt whispering that I needed to protect myself. Or maybe it was just the old contractor in me, wanting to make sure the foundation was solid before signing off. We talked vaguely about transferring the deed later, but later never came. I was too busy fixing their leaky faucets. I pulled the documents from my bag, handed them to Mike. He scanned the deed. His eyes widened slightly. He checked it again, then looked up at me with a slow smile. Thomas, he said, tapping the paper, the deed is entirely in your name. Thomas Anderson, sole owner. The twist. So simple. Yet it changed everything. They thought they were homeowners. They were guests. So, legally? I asked. My voice trembled slightly. Legally, it's your house, Michael confirmed. They are tenants at will. And if they are tenants, I can evict them. I finished the sentence. Yes, you can. A heavy silence hung between us. The reality was terrifying. I thought about Ethan and Emma, their innocent faces, kicking them out. Michael, it feels monstrous. I whispered. They are my grandchildren. Michael met my gaze. Is it more monstrous than banishing you to the garage? Than plotting to throw you out? If you don't draw the line now, Thomas, they will bleed you dry, and then discard you. He was right. The time for sentimentality was over. It was time for justice. I want you to draw out the papers, Michael, I said. My voice firm. Eviction notices. 30 days to vacate. All right, Thomas. Michael paused. How do you want to serve them? We can send a process server. I thought about the timing. The house full of guests. Linda presiding over the feast. The celebration I was banned from. I want them served tomorrow, I said. On Thanksgiving Day. In the middle of dinner. Michael hesitated. Tom, that's a nuclear option. It's going to destroy your relationship with David. My relationship with David is already destroyed, Michael, I said. The bitterness rising again. He destroyed it with a text message. It's time to clean house. This story has you hooked. Please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories like this to light. It was time to show them what I was truly made of. I left Michael's office, drove back to the yellow Colonial. The driveway was full. Linda's luxury sedan was blocking the garage. I had to park on the street, in front of my own house. The tension in the house was thick. Jessica and Linda were everywhere, directing the haters, barking orders at David. The head caterer, a stressed man named Pierre, was arguing with Linda about the appetizers. Ma'am, the salmon mousse will spoil, Pierre pleaded. I don't care about the mousse, Pierre. I care about the presentation, Linda snapped. They ignored me completely. I walked through the kitchen. They moved around me as if I were a piece of furniture. An inconveniently placed chair. I went upstairs to my suite. I tried to read, but the noise from downstairs was overwhelming. Later that afternoon, I heard a sharp knock on my door. Jessica. I opened it. She didn't say hello. She just held out her hand, palm up, her expensive manicure perfect, her eyes cold. Thomas, I need your credit card, she demanded. Excuse me? I asked, surprised by the audacity. The grocery bill is astronomical, she snapped. Organic everything, and Pierre needs a final deposit. David said you would cover it. She expected me to finance my own humiliation, to pay for the party I was banned from. I looked at her outstretched hand, the entitlement radiating from her. I wanted to scream, but I channeled my anger into a single powerful word. No. Jessica blinked, stunned. She actually took a step back, as if I had slapped her. Excuse me? No, I repeated, my voice calm and steady. I will not be paying for a dinner. I am not invited to. Her face turned red, her voice rising in anger. You owe us this. After everything we've done for you. Done for me? I asked, incredulous. Letting you live here, she shrieked. You should be grateful we gave you a place to stay. We could have put you in a nursing home. The threat hung in the air. The plan they had been working on, letting me live here. My voice was low and dangerous now. I think you have that backwards, Jessica. I closed the door in her face. I heard her cursing loudly as she stomped down the stairs. I heard her shouting at David. The storm was gathering, and I was ready for it. That evening David came to see me. He knocked timidly. He looked stressed, tired, his eyes bloodshot. Dad, what are you doing? He pleaded, rubbing his temples. Jessica is furious. Linda is threatening to leave. Why are you being so stubborn? I'm not being stubborn, David. I'm setting boundaries. Boundaries? Dad, we're family. Family helps each other. Are we? I asked quietly. Is that how family treats each other? By banishing them from Thanksgiving? By threatening them with nursing homes? He sighed, looked exhausted. Defeated. Look, I know the Thanksgiving thing is rough, but it's just one day. It wasn't just one. It was the culmination of months of disrespect. Linda's stressed, he continued, making excuses. And when she's stressed, Jessica gets stressed. And then he trailed off, unable to defend the indefensible. I understand, I said. Good, he said, relieved, thinking he had won, thinking I would fold. Then he delivered the next blow. So, tomorrow, during the party, he started, looking at the floor. Can you just stay up here? Keep a low profile? He finally said it. It would make things easier for everyone if people didn't see you. He was asking me to hide, to become invisible in my own home. I stared at my son, flesh and blood, and saw a stranger, a coward. He was willing to erase his own father. The depth of his cowardice was staggering. It solidified my resolve. There was no turning back. Is that what you really want, David? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He looked away. It's just easier this way, Dad. Okay, I said. It will be easier. He didn't realize how easy it was about to get. Thanksgiving Day arrived. The sky was a cold, crisp blue. The smell of roasting turkey and spices filled the air, mocking me. I watched from my window. Cars started arriving around noon. Strangers. The house was full of strangers, celebrating in my home. I sat in my chair. I heard the laughter, the clinking of glasses, the sounds of the life I was supposed to have, the life I paid for. Around 1 p.m., I decided to get a glass of water. I walked down the stairs and into the main kitchen. It was crowded. The dining room table was set with expensive china, the new dining set they had insisted I buy. Linda was holding court near the stove, gesturing with a glass of wine. She saw me. Her eyes narrowed. The conversation stopped. The room went silent. Linda turned to the person next to her. She spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear, her voice dripping with contempt. Some people just don't understand boundaries, she announced to the room. It's embarrassing, frankly. I stood frozen near the refrigerator. We try to help, she continued, shaking her head sadly. But there's no gratitude. They just keep taking and taking. The humiliation burned, hot and sharp. They were treating me like a charity case. In the house I bought. I turned around, walked back upstairs, without the water. My resolve was stronger than ever. A little while later, I heard a small, hesitant knock on my door. I opened it. It was Ethan, my 7-year-old grandson. He was holding a small plate covered with a napkin. Grandpa, he whispered, looking over his shoulder. I saved you some. My heart melted. The innocence, the kindness. Mommy said you were sick, he said, confused. But you don't look sick. Thank you, Ethan, I said, taking the plate, my throat tight with emotion. Suddenly, Jessica appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Her face was flushed, her eyes wild. Ethan, what are you doing? She shrieked. Get back to the table right now. She rushed up the stairs. She snatched the plate from my hand. The food spilled onto the floor, the turkey sliding across the hardwood. Don't you dare interfere, Thomas, she hissed at me, her voice low and venomous. Don't you dare undermine me in front of my guests. Ethan burst into tears, terrified by his mother's rage. That was the final straw. Any lingering guilt vanished. She wasn't just hurting me. She was poisoning my grandchildren. I had to stop it. And you? She glared at Ethan, dragging him down the stairs by his arm. You are in big trouble. No dessert for you. Ethan's cries echoed down the hallway. My heart broke for him, but the anger kept me moving. I went downstairs later. I stood in the hallway, just out of sight. I could hear them complaining in the dining room. The turkey was a bit dry. The conversation turned to the house itself. It's this cheap construction, I heard Jessica snap, her voice loud and clear. The appliances are substandard, she continued, complaining to her guests. I bet Thomas cut corners when he oversaw the building. He probably bought the cheapest things he could find. The lies, the audacity. I'd bought top-of-the-line appliances. We're going to have to redo everything, she sighed dramatically. They were erasing my contribution, rewriting history, making me the villain in my own story. But the lies were about to end. David came upstairs one last time, just as they were serving dessert. His face was flushed with wine and anger. He hadn't knocked this time. He barged into my suite. Dad, this behavior is unacceptable, he said, his voice slurred slightly. You upset Ethan, and you're making everyone uncomfortable. I upset Ethan? I asked, stunned. Jessica told me what happened, he said, swaying slightly. She told you she snatched a plate of food from my hand and made your son cry, I asked coldly. You provoked her, he said. His loyalty twisted beyond recognition. He chose them over me. I need you to apologize, he demanded. To Linda and Jessica. Now, apologize. I couldn't believe it. Yes, for ruining our Thanksgiving. He took a step closer. His breath smelled of wine and betrayal. If you want to continue living here, you need to respect the rules of this house. You need to understand your place. The sheer audacity, the complete inversion of reality. It was breathtaking. I started to laugh. A cold, empty sound. David looked shocked. What's so funny? This house, I said, looking around the small suite. The rules of this house. My place. I picked up my phone. I called Michael. It's time. I'm on my way, Thomas, Michael said. The police officers are meeting me there. Police? I asked, surprised. Given the hostility, it's better to have officers present to keep the peace. Michael explained. Just a precaution, Tom. I hung up. Police. It had come to this. My family holiday required law enforcement. The sadness threatened to overwhelm me. But I pushed it down. It was too late for sadness. It was time for the truth. The doorbell rang. The timing was perfect. The laughter in the dining room died down instantly. The silence was heavy, expectant. Who could that be? I heard Linda ask. Annoyed. I'll get it, David called out. I walked down the stairs, my footsteps slow and deliberate. I felt a strange sense of calm. I reached the foyer just as David opened the door. Standing on the porch were Michael, my lawyer, looking grim and professional, and two Juman police officers, Officer Davis and Officer Chen, their faces impassive. David stared at them, his confusion quickly turning to alarm, his face drained of color. Can I help you, officers? He asked, his voice trembling. He looked at Michael. Who are you? What is this? I am Michael Roberts, attorney for Mr. Thomas Anderson, Michael said, his voice professional and loud. Loud enough to carry into the dining room. Jessica and Linda rushed into the foyer. What's going on? Jessica demanded, her voice shrill. Why are the police here? This is a private party. Linda pushed past her. David, what is the meaning of this interruption? I stepped forward. Everyone turned to look at me. For the first time since I bought this house, I was the center of attention. The silence was absolute. David, Jessica, I said, my voice clear and steady, ringing in the sudden silence. I understand you wanted a stress-free Thanksgiving. I am here to ensure that all your future holidays are stress-free as well. I continued. Michael stepped forward. He handed David an envelope. Mr. David Anderson and Mrs. Jessica Anderson, Michael announced formally, his voice echoing in the large foyer. You are hereby served with an official notice of eviction. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. The silence that followed was deafening. David stared at the papers, his mouth hanging open, his face ashen. Jessica looked like she was about to faint, her hand clutching her chest. She gasped for air. Linda was the first to recover. Her face turned a deep, mottled red. Rage contorted her features. Eviction? She shrieked. You can't evict them. She pointed a trembling finger at me. This is their house. Thomas gave it to them. It was a gift. No, Linda, I said, looking her straight in the eyes, my voice cold and hard, devoid of emotion. This is my house. I turned to David. He was still staring at the papers. I paid for everything, I said, the truth finally out. The land, the construction, the taxes, and I never put your names on the deed. The house is mine, solely mine. David looked up at me, betrayal and disbelief warring on his face, the reality of his situation crashing down around him. He looked like a little boy again, lost. Dad, he whispered, his voice breaking. You're kicking us out? We're your family. You can't do this. Family? I said, the word laced with pain. Family doesn't banish their father to the garage on Thanksgiving. The memories flashed before my eyes. The lonely meals, the demands for money, the text message. Family doesn't treat the person who sacrificed everything for them like an embarrassment, I continued, my voice rising in anger. Or hired help. You made me feel unwelcome in my own home. Now, I am making you unwelcome. Jessica burst into tears, dramatic hysterical sobs. Where will we go? She cried. We have children. He's throwing his grandchildren onto the street? She turned back to me, her face twisted in hatred. You monster! You cruel, selfish monster! You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't worthy of a seat at the table, I said, my voice unwavering. You wanted the house without the burden of the man who provided it. Well, now you have neither. Linda was screaming now. I'll sue you. We'll take everything you have. You manipulative old man. You planned this. Officer Davis stepped forward. Ma'am, you need to calm down, he said firmly. This is a civil matter. The ownership of the property is clear. If you continue to cause a disturbance, we will have to remove you. Furthermore, Michael added, his voice cutting through the chaos, Mr. Anderson is selling the house. Michael nodded to a well-dressed woman who had stepped into the foyer behind the officers. Sarah Jenkins, the realtor. The sale is already pending, Michael continued. The 30 days notice is actually quite generous. David looked at me, his defenses finally crumbling. He was weeping now, tears streaming down his face. The weak, scared boy hiding behind his wife's anger. Dad, please, he begged. We're sorry. It was a mistake. He took a step towards me. Linda pushed us, he sobbed. Jessica, I didn't know what to do. I was trapped. Please don't do this. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised. I saw the weakness in him, the ease with which he had cast me aside. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had betrayed himself. He had betrayed the values Martha and I had tried to instill in him. I gave you everything, David, I said, my voice trembling slightly for the first time. The emotion finally breaking through, and all I wanted in return was respect. A seat at the table. You denied me that. I turned to Michael. I'm done here. The Tets, horrified and embarrassed, started to shuffle out, muttering apologies, grabbing their coats. The grand Thanksgiving dinner was over. The celebration of greed and entitlement was finished. I walked back upstairs to my suite, leaving the chaos behind me. I heard the police trying to calm Lindy down, Jessica sobbing uncontrollably, and David begging Michael for more time. I closed the door, sat down in my chair. I looked at the picture of Martha. I felt a profound sense of victory, but it was hollow, mixed with an overwhelming sadness. I had reclaimed my power, but I had lost my son. The fallout was swift and brutal. David and Jessica had 30 days to move out. They had no savings, significant debt from their lavish lifestyle. They couldn't afford anything. They ended up moving in with Linda, back into her small, sterile condo, the one she was desperate to sell. The irony was painful. David lost his job shortly after. Mark made good on his threat. The stress destroyed what little stability he had left. Linda did try to sue me, but she had no grounds. The documentation was impeccable. My generosity was not a legally binding contract. I sold the house. It sold quickly. The money went back into my retirement account, restoring my financial security, but it felt cold and heavy. Money stained with betrayal and loss. I moved into a small, comfortable apartment, a retirement community near a park. It was quiet, peaceful. I had neighbors who invited me over for coffee, who didn't ask me for money or expect me to fix their plumbing. I started volunteering, teaching woodworking to children. I found a sense of purpose again. I was rebuilding my own life, brick by brick. I didn't see David for over a year. He called a few times, left tearful voicemails, begging for forgiveness. I listened to them, but I couldn't bring myself to call him back. The wound was too deep. Jessica blocked my number. They wouldn't let me see Ethan and Emma. That was the hardest part, the cost of my victory. But I had regained something important too, my dignity, my self-respect. I learned a hard lesson. You cannot buy love. Respect is more valuable than brick and mortar. I thought that was the end of the story, but life has a way of surprising you. One Saturday afternoon, about 18 months later, I was sitting on a bench in the park near my apartment, reading a book, enjoying the warmth of the sun on my face. A small soccer ball rolled up to my feet. A small boy ran up to retrieve it. It was Ethan. I froze. I hadn't seen him in so long. He had grown taller. He looked older, more serious. He stopped when he saw me, his eyes wide with recognition. "Grandpa?" "Hello, Ethan," I said, my voice thick with emotion, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked up, saw David walking towards us. He looked tired, older, dressed simply, jeans and a t-shirt. He stopped a few feet away, watching us awkwardly, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Dad," he said quietly. "David." We looked at each other. A chasm of pain and betrayal lay between us. The silence stretched out, heavy with unspoken words, the memories of that Thanksgiving hanging in the air like smoke. Jessica and I divorced," he said suddenly. Looking down at the ground, I wasn't surprised. "It was bad," he continued, his voice raw. "Living with Linda, it destroyed us. She blamed me for everything, for losing the house, for losing my job, for not being man enough." I nodded slowly. Their marriage was built on a foundation of greed and entitlement. It was bound to collapse. "I've been thinking a lot," David said, "about that Thanksgiving, about everything." He took a deep breath. "I was wrong, Dad," he hid, the words rushing out. "I was weak. I let them treat you terribly. I took you for granted." He finally met my eyes, his own filled with deep regret, a sadness that mirrored my own. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I miss you, Dad." Tears welled up in my eyes. It wasn't a perfect resolution. The past couldn't be undone. The damage was severe, the trust still shattered. It would take a long time to repair the foundation. Maybe it could never be fully repaired, but it was a start, a crack in the wall he had built around himself. "I miss you too, David," I said, the words heavy with emotion. Ethan ran up and hugged my legs tightly. I put my hand on his head, feeling the warmth of his hair. I closed my eyes, savoring the feeling of his small arms around me. It wasn't the big family dinner Martha had dreamed of. It was just 3 generations. Anderson men, standing awkwardly in a park on a Saturday afternoon. But for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. I knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but as I looked at my son and my grandson, I realized something. Sometimes you have to tear down the whole house to rebuild a family on a foundation of truth. And sometimes the strongest thing a man can build is the strength to walk away when he is no longer valued, and the courage to start again. One brick at a time. Thanks for listening. If this story resonated with you, please rate it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Your support means the world, because your time matters.